What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer, Tyler Horka, Jack Soble live on the Blue and Gold YouTube channel, Wednesday, December 10th. A few days removed from Notre Dame being snubbed from the college football playoff. And really moments after the bombshell news over at Michigan that Sharon Moore fired with cause. We're not going to discuss that in this show. I'm sure you can go to our On 3 YouTube channel. They're going to be talking about that there. But we are going to go ahead and ask you folks to go ahead and hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content, and blueandgold.com for so much more coverage on the Fighting Irish. So let's go ahead and dive into the 6 topics today for this week's six-pack show. First, boys, reflecting on the college football playoff snub. We're a few days removed. Pete Pavak was done various press since then. Jack, first thing that comes to mind, when thinking about the snub on December 10th.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind in general is, Mike, your new look. I like it.
I accidentally messed up shaving, and now I don't have a beard. So that's what happened. It was not intentional. But thank you, Jack.
Nice work anyway. So the CFP snub, I've thought a lot about like what should have happened, what I would have done if I were the committee in the past few days. I think in a vacuum, the Miami thing is what it is. Like, you can make a really good case for Miami to be ahead of Notre Dame and also for Notre Dame to be ahead of Miami. Basically, like, Miami had the worst losses, but the best win by a decent margin. Notre Dame had the eye test and the metrics. Miami had the head-to-head. Common opponents was pretty even. So you really could have gone either way there. What Notre Dame is rightly furious about is the last-minute switch-up. Like, the being told you're a playoff team, you're ahead of Miami for so long. And part of that is the committee grossly underranking Miami in the first edition. And that's a big problem with these weekly ranking shows, as many people have pointed out. But so that's the Miami issue. The much bigger problem is the way the committee treated Alabama in the last 2 weeks of the rankings. The absolute nonsense about, they beat 5-7 Auburn at home. We were really impressed with that, so we moved them over Notre Dame. They already beat Georgia in the past, so it doesn't matter that they lost to Georgia by 21. And then you compared that with how they treated BYU for basically the same result on Championship Saturday, which allowed the head-to-head comparison with Notre Dame and Miami to come into play. So what I would have done was Notre Dame either 9 or 10, Miami 9 or 10, Alabama out. But it seems SEC bias just won the day again, because I can't fathom A, moving Bama up in week 14, and B, not dropping Alabama after what was frankly a pitiful performance in the SEC championship.
Yeah, I think I tweeted it just after midnight, conference championship Sunday. So I guess 12 hours before Notre Dame was to learn of its fate. Ended up being a terrible fate. I would have put Notre Dame at 9, just move them up, bump Alabama out of there. And then I would have put Miami at 10, because that would have quieted all of Miami. Because for a month it was Miami complaining like, we beat Notre Dame, which is very true. But even if they get in and Notre Dame is ranked ahead of Miami, as it was the entire time, both parties are happy. You're in. You made it. Now, there would have been a vocal minority of the Miami fan base that was like, we should be the 9 seed. This is crap. Like, send us to Norman. And I get that. Like, that was never going to change. But the way that the committee did this really, really rubbed Notre Dame the wrong way. And, like, I haven't even really seen a lot of Miami fans jump on Notre Dame after this, because I think everybody is like, yikes, man. Notre Dame got done dirty here. Alabama fans are the only ones that are sitting back like, look at us. We're in. But to me, it shouldn't have been. I agree with Dan Orlovsky, anyone else at ESPN who's stuck their neck out there and said Alabama shouldn't be in this thing. Because I don't think Alabama should be in this thing. Like, for the last month of the season, what have they lost? 2 of their last 5 games. They look like crap in the SEC championship game. And look, if those don't matter, if you lose, only if you win, then something needs to be done with those, because it's a data point. It's an extra data point. I get it. Not every team has it, but you're running out there to win a trophy. In the lead up, Kalen DeBoer, all the players were like, yeah, man, this thing is ours. Nick Saban on College Game Day picked Alabama. What a terrible pick that looks like, because they looked like crap. And that's the last By the time that we see them step on the field again in Oklahoma, that's the lasting image of Alabama was that game, 28-7 against Georgia. Lasting image for Notre Dame, 49-20 against Stanford, 70-7 against Syracuse. The list goes on. Just thumped Pittsburgh, up and down the line. Notre Dame looked great. So, yeah, it says in the little rundown thing on our show, snub. It was a snub. I think Notre Dame should be in. Miami fans think that Notre Dame should be in as well. They just think that Miami should be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. Well, they got their wish there, but Notre Dame did not get its wish because it got left out, and I think wrongfully got left out.
Yeah, I don't think Notre Dame or Miami would particularly care if they're 9 versus 10. I think at that point, like, I don't really like Texas A&M isn't playing particularly good football right now. Oklahoma's not playing particularly good football right now. I think both those teams would feel pretty confident in their first round games in that scenario. The only issue, and actually to really quick wrap up the Alabama thing, they were the only team in the past 2 years to drop their conference championship game and not fall.
I don't know if this tweet is accurate. I can't even remember who it's from. I know for a fact 2023, 2024, and 2025, they're the only team that's dropped.
Yeah.
I think there's only 2 in the history of the CFP going all the way back to 2014 who have not dropped. It's like 86 of 88.
It'd be one thing if they lost on a last-second field goal. They lost by 21. You and I had more rushing yards than Alabama. It's just ridiculous. With Miami, though, a big issue I have is that if Miami won either of its dumb losses to SMU or Louisville, Notre Dame would be in because Miami would have made its conference championship game, and they would have taken away that auto bid from James Madison because they would have won that game. So you're punishing Notre Dame for Miami losing one of those 2 games, and I just can't wrap my head around that.
So, of course, Notre Dame opting out from a bowl game, which we thought at the time, when we were doing that big Sunday live show, we thought that Notre Dame's going to go play for the Pop-Tarts Bowl. It's the top non-playoff bowl, and we were all pretty surprised. Are you guys less surprised now that we've heard from Pete Bavacqua and various sources about why they did that? And then, I guess, do you still agree with that move? We'll start with Tyler.
Almost, I wouldn't say more surprised because I'm not surprised. Hearing Pete Bavacqua, he's laid out the reasoning why it's happened. It all makes sense to me. Like, if that's your decision, go about it and own it, and Notre Dame has. But we're going to get to a point a week from now, December 17th, or 10 days from now, where we should be a week away from a Notre Dame bowl game, and it's just not there. I think that's already starting to set in for me. It's like it feels kind of weird that this Notre Dame football season is over, and Pete Bavacqua has said it needs to be celebrated. It's kind of hard to celebrate it now. It's over. I mean, Jeremiah Love's going to go out there on Saturday and be a part of the Heisman Trophy celebration. That's like an extension of your Notre Dame season. You're seeing All-American teams come out today. You can celebrate those things. But it's weird to me that, we won't see CJ Carr play again in his redshirt freshman season. We won't see Leonard Moore play as a sophomore. Those are 2 guys that might only have one more season of Notre Dame football. They could have had one more game left in this season, but it's not happening. So it's a little weird. But like when you get to the nuts and bolts of why, I mean, I wrote a column this week at Blue and Gold. The bowl season just isn't what it is anymore. And Notre Dame was led to believe for 5 weeks that it was going to be playing in a college football playoff game, and maybe 4 of them, and maybe have a chance to win a national championship. When you get the rug pulled out from under you, like Pete Bavacqua has said multiple times this week, and then all of a sudden you're told, yeah, it's Pop-Tarts Bowl or nothing. Like, you guys want to come play in this thing? It kind of makes sense to me why Notre Dame was like, no, we don't want to. You can take your Pop-Tarts and maybe shove them where the sun don't shine, and we're going to get on to 2026, as Pete Bavacqua told us on Tuesday.
So I do understand the logic behind why they didn't want to play in this bowl game. I get the whole, like, this team was special to them, and they don't want to play with an incomplete roster. Like, I get all that. I still disagree with it because I think you're giving up more than you're gaining by not playing in the bowl game. You're giving up an opportunity to see what you have in some guys, like the running back room. Aeneas Williams, Nolan James, you get a lot of reps for those guys. Might be nice for someone like Jaden Greathouse to get a few reps under his belt before he's going to be most likely a much larger part of the offense in 2026 after a long time off. Maybe get some confidence under him. If Malachi Fields opts out, maybe see what you got in your boundary receivers like Micah Gibler and Cam Williams. See if you need one of those in the portal. a bunch of other guys. Maybe some of the defensive tackles as a position need in the portal. Maybe give Dallas Golden some run at nickel to see if you need another one of those in the portal or not. There's just a lot of young guys who could have benefited from a lot of those reps. Maybe some offensive linemen for that matter. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So there's that aspect. The other aspect, like I get wanting to stick it to ESPN. Like I get wanting to not what's the phrase? I get wanting to not like give the ESPN the ratings or whatever. The better way to stick it to ESPN, in my opinion, would be beating BYU by 30, which I think Notre Dame would have done. An angry Notre Dame with enough time for this to sit and marinate. I think Notre Dame would have kicked the living hell out of BYU.
Yeah, and I mean, look at Marcus Freeman's postseason record. The Fiesta Bowl was what it was, but oh my gosh, does that feel like a lifetime ago? Yes, it does. But then you had the Gator Bowl, and you know that was a weird Notre Dame team with Tyler Buckner coming back to start, and they won that game. They won Steve Angeli's only starting a Notre Dame uniform in the Sun Bowl, and then they went on their playoff run last year. So since the start of the 2022 season, Notre Dame is 5-1 beyond the regular season. I'm with you, Jack. I think they would have done what they always do in December and January and won this football game. And it's always fun to win a football game. Marcus Freeman's the one that talks about 12 guaranteed opportunities. This is a bonus opportunity.
Yeah, it's an opportunity.
This is one that you've earned that you get to play. And I get it. Notre Dame feels like it earned more than that, but so does Vanderbilt. So does Texas. So does some of these BYU, your opponent in that game. So it's almost like prove to everyone that you should have been in the playoff bowl is what the Pop-Tarts Bowl would have been. Now the rosters would have been totally different. And I still circle back to the point that I made that bowl season is different, man. Like in the BCS era, if you didn't make the national championship game and you were one of the best teams in the country, you played in the Rose Bowl, you played in the Sugar Bowl, you played in the Fiesta Bowl. And that mattered. That meant something. I think of Boise State, Oklahoma. I think of a Texas-Michigan Rose Bowl that was freaking awesome like 20 years ago. Those games mattered. Pop-Tarts Bowl, 2025, 2026. No, it doesn't hit the same. And Notre Dame made that loud and clear. Like, we thought this team could win a national championship, and you want us to go out there and play in a game where your prize is you get to eat a literal life-size Pop-Tart, a human dressed up as like, no, man. You can miss me with some of that stuff, honestly. And I put it this way, and I agree with this take. It's why I wrote it. A society that is adamant that participation trophy culture needs to be eradicated and thrown out, and we need to stop handing out participation trophies. Notre Dame is literally shoving one out of its face, and everyone's trying to make fun of Notre Dame for that. It's like,
can I get some time to respond to that and also deliver some kind of breaking news that just hit our email inboxes regarding the subject? So the news is Notre Dame is going to participate. The football program is going to participate in a private bowling event. Little piece of irony there, where the players will compete against each other. I think this is like the fun activity that Pete Bavacco referenced, wanting to organize for the team in place of a bowl game. Donations are open to anyone who wishes to contribute. All proceeds will be donated to organizations in the South Bend community. So that's nice. I do want to push back hard, Tyler, on what you said about like the participation trophy thing, and like sometimes especially in a moment like this where you're just heartbroken, sometimes maybe want to have fun. It's fun to eat a life-size Pop-Tart. It's fun to kick the crap out of BYU. Like I get
any
it.
One of these guys, if they want to eat a Pop-Tart or win a national championship, which they thought they were going to have a chance to do.
No one is saying they would rather go to the Pop-Tarts Bowl than eat a national championship. But sometimes you gotta make the best of your situation. And I think Pete Bavacqua said that Notre Dame didn't want to make an emotional decision, but that is sort of the impression I get from the decision that they made. And again, I understand their logic, but I don't agree with it, and I don't think I ever really will.
Tyler, any thoughts on, like, I have the subject as any foul play, but this is really a conspiracy time because we're not big conspiracy guys, but like this is the time that feels like it like you should look into some of these things, like with ESPN or the ACC with the whole, since they didn't get their conference champion, did that mean it's more likely that Miami's going to get in? What do you buy? What do you not buy, Tyler? You're muted, brother.
It's I mean, this would take some like serious investigative reporting to get to the bottom of, because right now it's all speculation and hearsay and whatnot. But it's hard to get past the way that ESPN set this whole thing up, right? Like it was a Notre Dame literally got the rug pulled out from under it. Like when I heard Pete Bavacqua say that the first time, I was like, all right, maybe that's a little too much. But you and I and everyone else watched these shows, these selection shows every Tuesday. We did shows like this immediately after them. And with every single one of them, you felt more and more like Notre Dame was in. And some of the analysts on there were like, yeah, Notre Dame keeps winning. Notre Dame's in. Well, that turned out to be untrue. And the thing, Jack, that was weird to me was toward the end, there definitely felt like a visceral shift of, nope, it's got to be Miami. It's got to be Miami. It's got to be Miami. Like, these are the ESPN talking heads saying this. And then it was Miami. And maybe that's right. Maybe the head-to-head did win out at the end of the day, but it's wrong in comparison to what they fed us for 5 weeks. And some of it honestly was a little bit wrong. And like, it felt a little biased to me, the way it was coming off. It's like, it was like almost anti-Notre Dame, the way that Pete Bavacqua was saying, especially from the ACC. Now with ESPN, it may be a little bit different, but there's also the Alabama part with this foul play thing. Like, there could be some SEC bias here, because how does Alabama get in? How does Alabama get treated the way that it did? Preferably is how I would say that. The last couple of weeks is beyond me. You're muted, Jack.
As a general rule, sorry about that. As a general rule, don't assume malevolence when incompetence is the clear answer. And I think that's what's happening here with a lot of these conspiracy theories. When you watch Hunter Yurachek try to explain away the committee's decisions, I see someone who doesn't have any idea what the hell they're doing, rather than someone engaging in a grand conspiracy to keep Notre Dame out. Now, is bias a part of this? Sure. But I just can't really attribute any of this to anything but like a committee that was just making it up as it went along, and that's what it was doing. The reasons that the reasons it ranked Notre Dame over Miami in the first place, when they were trying to justify that for a long time, that was all over the place. The reasons they used to justify Miami flip-flopping over Notre Dame, even though neither school had any new data points, was all over the place. And I get that ESPN has a deal with the ACC and not Notre Dame. ESPN also has a deal with the Big Ten and not Notre Dame, and the Big Ten took up 3 of the top 5 spots. ESPN also, I don't believe ESPN has a deal with the Big 12. I could be wrong in that. I think the Big 12 is just Fox, right?
I mean, it was always both, but I don't know. The Big 12's changed so much lately.
They were on the Big 12 championship was on ABC.
Oh yeah, duh. So it does have the Big 12, but the ESPN definitely doesn't have the Big 10, and they were 3 of the top 5 spots. So I think it's less a conspiracy and more a committee that really did not know what it was doing. I will give in to some of the SEC bias allegations, because that's really the only reason Alabama didn't drop.
I want to make this point again before the end of this segment. This committee is subject to human nature, essentially. And I think that the politicking played a huge role here. And not just from Miami's, like with Mario Cristobal getting out in front of a microphone, or the ACC doing what it did on social media, which Pete Bavacqua took issue with. I'm talking when guys like Josh Pate get in front of a microphone and hundreds of thousands of people hear it. Kirk Herbstreit, whoever was saying Miami needs to be in. Miami needs to be in. And it was a lot of people. I think the committee heard that, and they knew that no matter what they put out there for 5 weeks, they had the power to change it all in one fell swoop in the final rankings, and they did. And that makes no sense to Notre Dame because it was ranked ahead of Miami the entire time. But all it took was that one action, and they acted upon what they heard. I really do believe that.
Jack, obviously a big talking point from Pete Bavacqua this week in his press conference yesterday, and then his Dan Patrick Show appearance earlier in the week, was about the social media push that the ACC had with Miami over Notre Dame. That's something that upset him. In my opinion, I think he spent too much time on that. What are your guys' thoughts on this? Like, to me, that's a minor talking point, but it seemed like he spent a lot of time on it. That's my one criticism from Pete this week.
Well, he spent a lot of time on it because he was asked about it a lot. I don't think that's a Pete Bavacqua thing. I think that's he said a provocative thing on
the Dan Patrick. He kind of went out of his way to light the flame, I would say.
Sure, but didn't Dan Patrick ask him about the ACC and like its role to play?
I think Pete kind of went on a little tirade type thing on his own. I'd have to watch it back.
Sure, but like that's why he talked about it so much at the press conference, because he was asked about it a bunch. Like, I don't think he mentioned the ACC in his opening statement. But regardless, like, he has been a lot more explicit in his criticism of the ACC than I thought he would be. But I do think Notre Dame has a right to be upset. I think that the ACC never compared Miami to Alabama, for example, or any of the schools around it. I think it was very targeted at Notre Dame. I think there are better ways for, like Bavacqua said, for the conference to do that. I go back and forth a little bit because at the same time, the conference does have a duty to promote that the members that are in the ACC in football, and of course Notre Dame's not. So like, there's nothing wrong with the conference boosting Miami's resume. The amount and extent to which it was targeted at Notre Dame, I thought Notre Dame had a right to be upset with that, given its relationship and membership in the ACC in almost every other sport.
That's where I start the conversation, and I wrote a column about that for Blue and Gold as well. Is Notre Dame is the face of the ACC in a lot of ways, in a lot of big moments. I think of women's basketball championship 7 years ago. Couple lacrosse national championships since then. The men's soccer team went on a hell of a run a couple of years ago to make it an all ACC national championship game. Clemson won, but Notre Dame very valiant in getting there and only losing by a goal there. There's just so many different things that you point to. It's like Notre Dame here, Notre Dame there, all with a little ACC logo on these student athletes' chests. And then for the ACC to be like, screw these guys. And I get it. They're not a full member in football. But the irony in that is the ACC would love for Notre Dame to be a full member in football. And it just like completely tossed the Irish aside. And look, they were never supposed to do the same thing for Miami or do the same thing for Notre Dame that they did for Miami. Like, they were never going to say, hey, here's Notre Dame's resume. This is why they should be in. They shouldn't do that. But to your point, Jack, the way that they made it seem like this is Notre Dame versus Miami, and because Notre Dame did the opposite. Pete Bavacqua had 1 or 2 moments in front of a mic ahead of Selection Sunday, and he said, this is not Notre Dame Miami, this is Notre Dame Alabama. It turns out that needed to be louder because Alabama is the one that stole this college football playoff spot from Notre Dame. And I get it, Miami got in there at the very end, but if you're looking at those 3 teams from a Notre Dame perspective, I think you need to point at Alabama and say, those are the guys that should be out. Miami and us, we could both be in. Didn't end up being the case. But with the ACC stuff, I understand Pete Bavacqua's, and this is a smart guy too. Like, I think it takes a lot for him to come out and say the things that he said and act the way that he has. So, and then I don't know if we want to mention this, but with the independent Matt Fortuna and Pete Sampson, they might have uncovered something that makes this look a whole lot worse from the ACC side, that Notre Dame was literally CC'd on emails like, hey, we're gonna smear the Irish and this is what we've got coming. That's a bad look for the ACC.
So I do want to echo your point that Pete Bavacqua is not someone who would just take these shots without thinking about it. Like, this is a very pragmatic person that we're talking about. Like, Pete Bavacqua is not, like, he is not impulsive. He is not so willing to call people out. Like, he, again, like we said, like, he barely stumped for Notre Dame. And I have a question for you, Tyler, since you believe that, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. I've been going back and forth with this myself, but since you believe that the pressure from the national media on the Miami side influenced the committee, do you think more of a social media campaign on the part of Notre Dame would have made a difference?
I think it would have made it worse. I think anything Notre Dame would have said, everyone else would have been so much louder that it should be Miami needs to get in there. Miami needs to get in there. So I liked Pete Bavacqua saying that Notre Dame was speaking for itself. I thought that Notre Dame was speaking for itself. 70-7 was loud, man. Like the Stanford game was 42-3 at one point. I really thought that Notre Dame was speaking for itself.
No, for sure, and I do agree with Bavacqua that like aside from winning one of its first two games, Notre Dame couldn't have done anything on the field better than it did in what was I going to say in the rest of the season. It just, Notre Dame needed to do three things after starting 0-2. One, win the rest of its games. Two, win them convincingly, and three, get help. It did the first two things, just didn't get enough help either from the rest of college football or the committee.
There's no secret that the New York Giants are pretty interested in Marcus Freeman as their head coach. A lot of local beat reporters covering the Giants mentioning Freeman's name. Don't have anything really new to report on that front other than what I just said, but Bavacqua talked about Freeman. So Tyler, I mean, I feel like when you hear that, what Bavacqua said, it's pretty encouraging. What do you have to say and your thoughts on it?
I had to say a lot. I mean, I put the whole video out on social media today. It was 2 minutes worth of this, that, and the other with Marcus Freeman. The first thing that you need to get to on this topic is Notre Dame is going to be as competitive as possible monetarily to keep Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame. Pete Bavacqua said that it's of the utmost importance for him to give fair compensation because, like you said, Mike, when we're talking about teams like the New York Giants, those are big pockets, the NFL, all over the place, big money organizations. They're going to offer a lot to Marcus Freeman, and they're offering him something different too. Like if the NFL is something that Freeman wants to jump for at some point, then the money is almost a bonus. Like the opportunity is as much as anything for a guy like Marcus Freeman to do something different with his career. The other side of it is Pete Bavacqua said that Notre Dame is going to do the most to make sure that he's just straight up happy in South Bend. And if he wants to continue being a college coach, there's no better place for him to do that than in South Bend. With the resources, I mentioned the money, his family being happy in South Bend is a big thing. We all know Marcus Freeman has a big family, so he mentioned Marcus Freeman's wife, Joanna, by name in this press conference. So many different layers to this, Jack, but the really the bottom line is that Pete Bavacqua wakes up every morning knowing that it's a really big job of his to keep Marcus Freeman happy and keep him in South Bend.
Right, and I think it's important to point out that I saw a comment on the loose emoji board under your article about Pete Bavacqua's commitment to keeping Marcus Freeman happy. Someone was like, just give him $15 million a year and be done with it. Like, there is no firewall that Pete Bavacqua can put up that would unequivocally prevent Marcus Freeman from looking elsewhere or eventually leaving. Like that, people want like a permanent solution to end rumors forever and automatically keep Marcus Freeman in South Bend for the next decade. That does not exist. If Marcus Freeman goes to the NFL, either now with the New York Giants or just eventually within the next decade or so, that will be because Marcus Freeman wanted to make the leap to the NFL. And if he does, I'm sure Notre Dame will have offered everything it possibly can between resources and compensation and making him and his family comfortable. But sometimes guys are just ready for new challenges. Sometimes guys just want to take a step to the next level. So if like you wrote, Tyler, if Marcus Freeman goes to the NFL, it will not be for a lack of trying on Notre Dame's part. And I think Pete Bavacqua, like this was never really a question. Like he's been pretty adamant about this since he extended Marcus Freeman before last year's playoff run. But it reinforced yesterday that Bavacqua will do everything in Notre Dame's power to keep Marcus Freeman here and keep him happy.
Yeah, and that's why I titled the article the way that I did and ended it the way that I did. So if you're not subscribed to blueandgold.com, definitely get there and do so. But at the end of the article, which like you said, Jack, I titled it, if Marcus Freeman leaves Notre Dame, it won't be for a lack of the Irish trying, basically. Here's the thing. nobody lasts anywhere forever, right? Like we need to be mindful of that. I think the longest tenure for a Notre Dame head coach ever is 12 years. And Brian Kelly hit that. I think there was one other coach. It wasn't Lou Holtz, but he got close. So like you're looking at a decade to a dozen years is basically the longest lifetime of a Notre Dame head coach. Marcus Freeman has lived 1/3 of that already. It's crazy to say, because some of us have been here for all of that, but like that's 1/3 of the time. And so like the clock is ticking type of thing. Now, is he the guy that breaks the mold and is the Notre Dame lifer? That would be really impressive because, like Pete Bavacqua said to us yesterday, he's still a pretty young guy. Like we forget, what is he? Is he turning 40 this year at the end of this year?
he turns 40 in January, and that's a good point. That's a good point you make, Tyler, because Marcus Freeman could be at Notre Dame for a decade and then coach for 2 or 3 more decades. Like,
yeah,
we said on the show, like I could totally see a scenario where it's been another 5 years, or maybe even fewer than that. Freeman's won a national championship at Notre Dame. He's like, you know what? I've accomplished a ton here. I'm ready for the next challenge. I want to go to the NFL. I don't think the NFL is for every college coach. I do think Marcus Freeman is someone who could very well succeed there. But I don't think there should be any kind of rush for Freeman to leave South Bend.
And I think like the best thing that can happen for Marcus Freeman and for Notre Dame is that national championship does get obtained, because he's a national championship caliber coach. I think he proved that last year, really proved it through 10 games again this year. And even in the losses, I mean, Notre Dame was so dang close. We were so close to talking about a college football playoff team again. And that's Marcus Freeman, man. I think this is every year. It's either Notre Dame's going to get into the CFP or Notre Dame's going to be one of the first teams out. And like, I see him staying here until he either wins that natty or gets so close so many times that he's like, I can't do this anymore. Let me go do something else. If it's the latter, that's going to be, tough to see him leave on. But like, I do think that he can get all the way there.
Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Of course, subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel if you are new. Jack, I think this is a column you wrote today. Where do the Irish go from here? What does the rest of December look like? Like, what's next for this program?
A lot of roster management we got to start talking about, and we have to start pre-writing some NFL draft decisions. Based on what Pete Bavacqua said on the Dan Patrick Show, I don't know if anyone else caught this line, but among the players he said would likely opt out of the bowl game, he mentioned Jeremiah Love, which duh. But he also mentioned Jadarian Price and Emil Wagner. So I think those are 2 players that he expects to move on to the NFL. Guys with legitimate decisions, I think, include Drake Bowen at linebacker, Adon Schuler at safety. I think it's notable that in its Echoes Awards, which is like Notre Dame's in-house postseason awards, they gave Bowen and Schuler co-defensive player of the year honors over Leonard Moore, which obviously is notable because Leonard Moore was up for defensive player of the year. Jacob Rodriguez of Texas Tech won that, but Moore is also up for defense back of the year, the Thorpe Award. So the fact that Notre Dame saw it fit to give Bowen and Schuler those honors really just goes to show what kind of season the Irish believe they had and what we believe they had. We've talked about this on the show. The roster should be really good next year. They will get CJ Carr back. They will get Leonard Moore back. The offensive line should be very good. I would argue it should be better if it's healthy, which obviously that's a big if, as we've seen from the past 2 years. But if everyone Notre Dame expects back is healthy, that line should be better. The receivers, they should get Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse back. Maybe they get a Malachi Fields type at boundary again. They got some younger guys in the pipeline too. That should be a deep group. And the defense, depending on how many of those guys they get back, that should be a really good unit as well. And they won't have those first-year defensive coordinator blues, assuming Chris Ash does return. You look at the schedule too, and this is where I want to leave it before I give it to you, Tyler. Their schedule: Wisconsin, Rice, Michigan State, and Purdue, September. North Carolina, Navy, Miami, which is Notre Dame's going to be furious for that game. Boston College, SMU, Syracuse, Stanford, or potentially Stanford and USC. Is there a loss in that list based on the roster we expect Notre Dame to have? At this point, I would probably argue no.
Yeah, interesting to see what Miami looks like next year. I don't even know what's next.
I don't think they know who their quarterback's going to be because Beck is gone. I don't think they have a real a realistic in-house backup that I know of. So they'll be back in the portal market.
And look, I think Mario Cristobal is a good coach, but I don't know if he's reload going to be a natty contender every year type of coach. Like they have the same record that they did last year. I think that's who Mario Cristobal is at Miami. He's like 10-2 in a good year that gets them into the playoff, and maybe they win a game. Maybe they're one and done type of team. So yeah, I think Notre Dame's going to be better than Miami next year. I think Notre Dame's going to be better than USC, but that's on the road. And this is who Notre Dame is, to keep it centered on Notre Dame and not, who they're playing next year. I mentioned in the last segment, like Marcus Freeman is this guy who is going to have this thing pointed at the CFP every single year. The first 2 years, it was like, oh man, like I could see the vision, but they're not totally encapsulating it yet. Once they did what they did in 2024, it's like that's almost making the most of it, outside of the NIU hiccup. And then nobody was beating Ohio State after Michigan did last year. They were on just a rampage from hell, and they won the Natty. I think Notre Dame's going to be capable of winning the national championship pretty much every single year that Marcus Freeman's here, especially when you got a quarterback like CJ Carr. Because I will always go back to having a conversation with, someone that's been around Notre Dame a long time, can't say his name, but he was asked, hey, like what's been missing for Notre Dame to win a national championship? Like, why has it been since 1988? And this person said, quarterback matched up with the right coach and just like everything falling into place at the right time. You have the quarterback in CJ Carr. You have the right coach. You have, like you said, Jack, a defense that's going to be in the second year of a coordinator, and assuming Chris Ash comes back, and a lot of really good pieces on that defense. A Nagurski Trophy finalist who could have been the defensive player of the year in Leonard Moore. Tay Johnson, I think, shouts to Xavier Watts, who did win the Nagurski Trophy once, and Adon Schuler, who had a heck of a year. I think Tay Johnson is like uber mega talented, closest thing talent-wise, different player, but closest thing talent-wise that Notre Dame's had since Kyle Hamilton, since he left, and now Kyle Hamilton might be the best safety in the NFL. Like, the pieces are there, man. And this Notre Dame team, I truly believe, especially if Pipo Vacqua is right when he says they're going to channel this the right way, they're going to use it as motivation. If you get pissed off Notre Dame next year, dude, the start of the championship DVD was just given to us on Sunday when Alabama and Miami's logo flashed up on the screen and not Notre Dame's. Like, that's the start of the championship DVD, if you ask me. Now it's up to Notre Dame to make it possible and go do it.
I mean, they'll be ridiculously motivated. I think, like, if there's any coach who's going to channel that the right way, it's Marcus Freeman. I mean, he's literally the poster child for the motivator archetype in the video game. Like, he is going to have this team absolutely fired up from the jump. They might go 20 straight games without losing a regular season game. They should be that good and that motivated next year.
All right, that is going to do it for this show. Still crazy to me. We're sitting here on Wednesday, December 10th, talking about no Notre Dame playoff, no bowl game. Tyler?
Jack just made an interesting point that we'll talk about for as long as Notre Dame keeps winning next year. Most teams end with a loss in the playoff, right? Like, there's only one team that can win all the playoff games. Notre Dame might have like one of the longest winning streaks in college football by this time next year. So we'll see.
Yeah, obviously on a 10-game winning streak, and yeah, could go upwards of 20 before the postseason next year. Well, again, that is going to do it for this video. Folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this show. Subscribe to the Blue and Gold YouTube channel for more content. Yeah, I still just stunned. 10-2, guys, was not a lock. I guess it wasn't a lock. I thought it might be, but it was not a lock. We are going to end the show there again, folks. Hit the thumbs up. Next live show will be Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Kelly and I will talk about the latest Notre Dame recruiting developments. Very busy time for the Irish coaching staff on the recruiting trail. So make sure you tune in to that show Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next time.